Blue side this game, Nerv.
Already a ban, wow.
Wicked. I mean, doesn't matter how long you play the game, doesn't matter what level you play the game at, you know better than to let Wicked have Aurelia. Bard also coming out. These are some very fast bans. Caitlyn, Rise taken off the table. So looking like some pretty general power picks, but no attention to the Nidalee or Kindred.
Yeah, so this is the big shift that you're seeing now on 6-11. Kindred, not a priority. Nidalee, not a priority. Nidalee was the most banned champion in every region across the world, and now she has put no priority on her whatsoever. So clearly the nerfs have hit her hard. People are saying, nope, we don't want to play her anymore. The Rise nerfs, reading through them, we had a bit of a discussion like, yes, they're going to knock his damage off a bit, but it doesn't really change what Rise does.
Yeah, and I think it coming out as a ban, I think you still have to be cautious because it can be such a powerful pick. And one of the other champions in international pick ban that was just almost never seen because it said spent so many games on the bench is Rise. Consistently banned out. Games that did make it through had a pretty good, I think only made it through one game in the first week of LPL out of 24, which is pretty insane. Of course, we can talk about the picks now as they've started to lock in. Braum, the first pick from Huma, but leaving open a lot of these kind of newer power picks. Swain and Rek'Sai both picked up by Nerv on the opposite side.
So the Braum is just a very powerful support because Bard has been taken off the table. Bard is one of the most contested supports right now in the vast majority of regions. Not so much in Europe. We have seen it picked up here and there, but definitely in North America, LCK, China, a highly contested pick. When you ban that away, the next priority has to be that Braum because he acts as a solid front line. He synergizes really well with the vast majority of AD carries. He's really good at disengaging, really good at peeling, has great effectiveness in team fights, and he wasn't nerfed this patch, which is a big thing. So he's definitely a power pick right now. It doesn't surprise me that Huma put a lot of priority on it. And to add to that, this is one of Wendelbo's go-to supports. So it makes a lot of sense that he decided to
getting both comfort and meta strength, of course, very important. But one of the questions we had was, is Kindred going to get picked? The answer is yes. They are going to lock this one in from Impaler. Impaler did play this a decent amount during the Challenger qualifiers. We'll have to see if he's gotten a little bit more comfortable or if he can still make it work in the same way.
So, for those unaware, the big changes to Kindred now, her damage on her Dance of Arrows has been hit pretty hard. But now you get additional damage on that Q once you get stacks of your passive up. And now the stacks are a little bit more telegraphed. They're in certain places depending on how many stacks you have. So it becomes a little bit easier to farm, but it also becomes easier to deny because you know where these stacks are going to spawn and where you're going to be able to control this Kindred a little bit more. The big change to Kindred really is that now she's more reliant on picking up those stacks, which is why we were wondering if she'd still be a priority.
Yeah, a lot of hits over the last couple patches to that early game, but looking as well at this Fizz. Top lane tank Fizz? Do you think this is the mid lane Fizz? What's the option here for this pickup?
So, the article that you mentioned earlier that I will be releasing hopefully throughout this week looks a lot into this Fizz pick because he has been rising in power. In particular, he does a very similar job to Echo. He loves to stick to your backline, and because he's so tanky, no, he doesn't have the highest amount of damage, but he's not someone you can just ignore. If you leave him alone with an AD carry, he will eventually kill them in a drawn-out fight.
It feels like he does a lot of what Echo does in threatening the backline, but just with all the Echo nerfs, suddenly we're looking for a replacement of that same obnoxious backline threat.
And he can be quite obnoxious during the laning phase as well, especially against more of the tanky off-tanks. Trundle in particular, you can't steal that many stats away from him early on because that's not what Fizz does. He likes to be at a bit of early damage. So there's the Fizz, there's the Kindred. Huma bring out a lot of interesting picks already. Feel like we haven't touched on Nerv whatsoever.
This is, I mean, now that we have 4 picks in, I think we can start to talk about what this composition is going to look in, because we mentioned the Swain and the Rek'Sai briefly, didn't get too deep, and now Lucian and Janna to round out the bottom lane, they're waiting on one pick. Whether it's mid, whether it's top, we can't be sure, but this is the core of a composition here for Nerv.
So, looks like that we are still seeing the Lucian being picked up. His laning presence has been hurt. No longer do you have the same sort of poke on his Q, and the damage has been reduced ever so slightly, as well as the range. So, but he's still Lucian. He still has this fantastic mid-game. The Ghost Blade Black Cleaver build is still terrifying to deal with. When you pair that up with a Janna, it's not someone that you can easily trade against. But on top of that, I'm really interested to see where this Swain is going to go for Nerv, because we've been discussing a lot how Swain has been rising in power, especially in Europe. Betsy's had some phenomenal games on Swain, and he's this great bruiser that loves to just sit on the front lines in these engagements that kind of avoids being the target focus. And when you have a Swain, you have a number of options because you can put him both in the top and in the mid. Don't like it top against the Fizz, but I do quite like it in the mid lane.
Well, now we can see that that will be the top lane Fizz, as Azir has been locked in for K-Droll in the mid lane. A lot of nerfs specifically on the length of that wall.
Yeah.
Going to make it a lot more difficult to control team fights, I feel like, in certain circumstances. But Krislin, Benoy, also picking up this Ezreal. So, interesting composition coming out from the side of Huma, and the response on the opposite side to match the Azir is going to be that Varus in the mid lane for Godbro.
Alright, so this wasn't what I was expecting at all from the champion select. I'm surprised that we're still seeing priority on the Azir, especially with Victor left open. I think that Huma were very wary of the Swain going mid, so they wanted to have a mid lane matchup that wouldn't go negatively. Victor gets shoved in very hard, really struggles to deal with a Swain, and what you can do with an Azir is poke him out, keep him at a distance, and it's very difficult then for the Swain to trade back with you because he wants to try and close that gap as much as possible.
But at the same time, I mean, we've got a Fizz in the top lane taking Ignite against a Swain, and it doesn't feel like you really get to set the terms of when you're going to trade there either for Swain. Doesn't look like this pick is going to be comfortable wherever it goes.
Well, the Fizz early on will struggle. He'll get pushed around. He'll take a bit of harassment, but once he gets his first item, typically what a Fizz will do is they'll go for the early Iceborne Gauntlet, so they have a bit of damage, bit of trading potential, then immediately go into full tank. Fizz might change that because Swain can be quite oppressive during the laning phase. However, what I'm more expecting is an actual lane swap to come through, because you have the Ezreal going up against, you have the Ezreal Braum going against the Lucian Janna, which Lucian Janna just a very hard lane to trade against as well.
Range support versus melee on top of the Lucian early game.
And you've also got the Fizz versus Swain up in the top. For Huma, I think that it would be the safer option during the laning phase. Hey, we just want to make sure that everyone gets through the laning phase, so let's just have everyone lane swap. Let's just get as much farm as we can during the early, and then we'll just let the mids battle it out in the meantime. So, interesting comps. Not really what I was expecting. Not what I think. A lot of changes here coming in on 6-11, but get on Twitter. If you think Huma can bust out this win with some new and interesting picks, tweet out hashtag HMA win. Or if you think the new Nerv roster has what it takes, tweet out hashtag NRV win. I want to see those Twitter votes. Let me know how you're feeling, folks, because we got a lot of questions about these two teams, and best of two, going to give us some great opportunities to answer them. But new picks coming out, some old picks sticking around like the Kindred, and I think an interesting game one to start us off. And of course, here we are, Huma on the blue side, Nerv on the red, both teams leaving their base. It looks like you may have predicted it because Lucian's already running topside. So, there are a lot of things that I think are really important to discuss in this. The first is the Varus into Azir matchup. Nerv can be very happy with this. One of the problems with early picking an Azir and why we haven't seen him hyper-prioritized in a lot of regions is because Azir as a champion has a surprising number of counters. There are a number of ways to punish him during the laning phase, and Varus is one of these. He can be quite oppressive in terms of early trades. There's nothing that Azir can do to match the insane poke coming out from the Varus, and overall, it's just a very difficult matchup for Varus for the Azir, sorry, to be able to get through. So that's very positive for Nerv. On top of that, they have the Swain, which can be very obnoxious into the Fizz, just constantly applying that harass. Nerv are trying to... They're expecting Huma to go for the lane swap, so they're setting that one up for themselves, but they haven't been able to extend the vision line far enough to be able to see what Huma are actually doing. They're going to identify the bottom lane of Huma moving up to try and steal these camps, and immediately you can see both Nardius and We Will Failure trying to rotate back down because they want to guarantee this 2 versus 2 and 1v1 up in the top.
Looks like they might be a little bit of hesitation here as Lucian spending a little more time in the bush. Maybe not wanting to rotate down quite yet. Instead, opting to go for a little bit of a later invade, potentially. Some big questions coming out. Wicked and Memento sticking to the double jungle. Wendelboe on his way in, trying to shut down what he can.
Wendelboe trying to just force Nerv away from the jungle camps right now. He's actually getting a surprising amount of damage down onto Memento.
Level 1, man. Concussive blows, dishing out a decent amount, as you said. Wolf Spirit, though, going to be summoned up. We'll keep some eyes on that side of the jungle. Janna and Lucian having what they can in the meantime, but it looks like it's just going to be the full-on lane swap coming out here early on.
So Nerv realized too late that Huma were going to keep standard lanes, and because of that, they thought, right, we could try and go back and get the 2 versus 2, but because if we do that, we're actually going to lose quite a lot of tempo, which I think could hurt us moving forward. So they've decided to just stick with the lane swap, and what they've done is sent Wicked up as fast as possible. This is the shift that we've seen in the lane swap priority. What you might see is Huma go for a very early dragon, but because it is the Cloud Drake, we're unlikely to see that much of a priority on it, in which case Huma want to try and avoid standard lanes as much as possible. We already discussed it during Champion Select. The Lucian in the 2 versus 2 with the Janna can be very oppressive. The Fizz really struggles up against the Swain. So what you'll then have is you shove up the tower, you have your jungler rotate down to take the turret as quickly as possible, you get the bounce back, and then you just swap sides. And you keep doing this until eventually someone tries to force a play.
We're going to have to see who wants to force that first. Of course, mid lane, as expected, Godbro playing incredibly forward. No major CS advantage quite yet as that wave will crash into the tower, but things looking pretty good for the Varus thus far. Nerv, they are going to break the tower first, so they will have a small advantage here in terms of speed. Actually, a significant advantage as Huma have not committed that 4th member, and Impaler opting to go for the jungle clear instead of supporting the team here.
It looks like Nerv doing a great job of actually freezing the minions in front of the turret, which means that because they tank them up, rather than waste any basic attacks trying to clear those out, and just using their abilities as primary wave clear, they've actually been able to take the turret down a lot faster. They've actually been able to set up the bans, and now Nerv are going to have a massive tempo advantage. They're going to be able to get onto this tier 1 in the bottom lane much sooner than Huma are, and they can really start getting advantages much quicker than Huma can.
Have to be careful though, because Impaler's looking to make aggressive moves. Godbro, good positioning on that side of the lane to make it out to safety, but Impaler, aggressive counter jungling coming out from him already. They may have given up tempo in terms of the lane swap, but he's trying to get back what he can at this point in the game. I like the vision coming out in the mid lane for Azir there, just to spot those arrows out in case he's trying to charge from Fog of War.
Yeah, smart actually. He's also trying to be quite mindful of Memento trying to set up these early ganks. Rek'Sai can be quite powerful. We can remember in our Misfits versus ESG final qualifier game where Rek'Sai sort of became the pick of the series, and whoever had it really dominated the early game, especially with the nerfs to Kindred in the early game. You're about to see what happens in the 1v1.
See if he gets the opportunity. Red buff is available for Memento, and Impaler now with a whole ton of options will get the mark in the end. Memento doesn't want to stick around for that fight. Varus nowhere near him, but Impaler happy to pick up another mark. I believe that's 2, and we're only 5 minutes in.
Yeah, so this is the change that you have now with the marks given by Kindred's passive. They're now a little bit more predictable. 1 to 2 will spawn on the Raptor camp, or will spawn on the Rift Scuttlers. And then from 3 to 4, they then shift onto the other jungle camps, and then 5 to 6, and so on and so forth. So you have a little bit more predictability. It's much easier to play around. And Memento right now, he's just trying to abuse that. He's trying to just walk into the enemy jungle, steal what he can. He knows that Wicked is pushed up, so he has the extra man advantage over Impaler, and he's just going to force him out of his jungle.
Yeah, Wicked applying so much pressure here on the top side as well. You can see Memento owning that jungle, really making it easy for him to push in. Bot lane, though, remaining a vacuum at this stage. No jungle attention has been shifted there, and mid lane, despite the early aggression, relatively even.
So I like what Huma did, shifting back into standard lanes because they realized how much of a tempo disadvantage they are at. They thought, okay, we're just going to deal with the 2 versus 2. We're going to deal with the 1 versus 1. We've now got our items. You can notice that the tier has already been completed for Crisland, and with the Doran's Blades, he should be able to just sit back and farm fairly easily. He's got the Brawn for protection if he needs it. The Fizz has also been able to pick up the Dark Seal alongside the Corrupting Potion, which means he does actually have a surprising amount of sustain up against the Swain. So Huma identified what was going to go wrong, quickly reacted to it, and I think that they should come out of the laning phase perfectly fine.
Yep, smart adaptation to notice when you're behind and adapt there. Something we can expect from a lot of these more veteran players. Looking forward, though, really still waiting for one team to try to make a play across the map. No huge opportunities yet, as you mentioned earlier. Dragon, Cloud Drake, we just haven't seen priority on it. Hasn't seemed worth contesting, worth taking risks over at this stage. Although maybe someone will look to use it to start a fight here.
Having a look at some of the stats that are beautiful stats people provided for us. The Cloud Dragon is usually on average the latest to be taken first, around that 9 to 11 minute mark. And we actually did some testing today to identify the actual power of Cloud Drake. And for those interested, the TLDR is, if you want to go from bottom lane to mid lane, it's about half a second faster if you have the first Cloud Drake. So,
and we talked, there are some fringe situations where that half a second makes all the difference. And we
not many, though.
Not very many, unfortunately. So just makes a lot of sense that it is not going to be a bigger priority, but there's a lot of pressure on the top side. Memento, he can't see anyone in that bush. Wendelboe, he's going to get that first stack. 3, looking for 4, mounting Dread as well. Memento potentially in trouble. Fizz is coming in, tanking the tower for the team. They get the setup. First blood drops for Impaler. Wicked could be next. Impaler going to have to walk it out to safety, but the 1-for-1 in the end because Swain manages to pick up the kill on JWoww.
So the fact that Huma had the vision advantage and Memento being on the ground couldn't actually see that Huma were all set up there for that dive meant that Huma ended up giving away his life without really being able to respond. And I think he identified that there was a dive coming up in the top half of the map and he just wanted to be in the area to provide assistance to Wicked, but unfortunately he was the one that ended up getting caught out as now. He might be caught out again.
Rinse and repeat, does have the tunnel available. Won't make it out to safety, but you gotta be careful there. Memento playing with fire here.
Certainly is. Memento, though, he is going to be safe. He does have the roaming support of Wendelboe to help out with Impaler. But it was actually really impressive by WeWillFailer to rotate up to the top half of the map as well. Nerv being aware that there might have been that potential dive, sending as many members top, and because of WeWillFailer's presence, Huma could not continue the dive onto Wicked. So smart reactive play coming out from both teams throughout the game so far.
Yeah, and looking back, of course, both these bot laners seem content to farm, although Krislin doing a much better job at this stage of the game. A 10 CS lead for the Ezreal, just using that tier to sit back and pick up every creep he can. And Lucian, despite potentially being stronger in the early game, even after those nerfs, kind of struggling to get these hits, is the pressure is really coming out from Krislin, and that really frees Braum up to roam in so many situations.
The thing is for Lucian is the nerf ranges to his the nerf to his range on his Q have actually significantly hurt his ability to trade in lane, because you can see the damage reduction coming into effect there. It does make it easier to lane against Lucian. He's not as oppressive as he used to be. He's still quite lane dominant, but it's now more towards once you've got your first item is when he becomes a little bit scarier. During the actual laning phase itself, he's more tolerable. So this is why we were expecting a little bit more of a shift in terms of what AD carries were playing. But we also have to bear in mind that this patch came up fairly recently. Perhaps these teams haven't fully had an opportunity to adapt, to identify what's strong right now.
Fairly recently Thursday.
Yeah,
it's Tuesday now.
Okay.
Memento, though, getting aggressive. Krislin just going to use that shift to get on out of there. Swain on the way down, not going to hit anyone with a Nevermore. They push just a little bit deeper, but Nerv are starting to make an aggressive move here. Krislin going to clear the wave. No Braum to block out. Impaler ready for the response, and it looks like just a bit of tower pressure laid down. Anything coming out quite yet. Tornado blocked out, but this is a lot of aggressive posturing from Nerv without getting much.
Wicked even used his teleport, which I think is the biggest problem for Nerv right now, because JWoww can free farm. You've invested Wicked into the bottom lane, so now Nerv feel they have to commit something into setting up a dive. They have 3 members, they have Kindred. I think this is a very risky dive for Nerv right now.
Huma, can they execute though? Can they punish this? Braum blocking what he can, but not keeping the tower safe quite yet. Nevermore finds one. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to get anything out of this overall. This is just very not working out overall. Did you really just do that? Did you really just write a pun down for me? You're like, play-by-play caster, go.
No, I did not. No.
Sorry to break the cast dynamic, but when a man writes never move.
That's the name of the ability. It's never move.
It's definitely Nevermore.
Are you sure?
It's definitely Nevermore. They're all bird-themed abilities. Oh. They're all relating to like Edgar Allan Poe.
Ooh, K-Droll trying to set up a play. So, K-Droll, Godbro was forced to use his ultimate there.
It is Never Move. They renamed it?
No, it was always Never Move.
It was Nevermore.
It was always Never Move.
Nevermore.
No, the poem is Nevermore, but
oh my god.
Pretty sure there's some sort of copyright there.
Just got destroyed on broadcast. All right, my crippling embarrassment aside, let's jump back into this game.
Oh man. Right, so a gank tried to be set up in the middle lane by Huma. Godbro was forced to use his ultimate, but wasn't forced to burn any of his summoner spells. Which means that no action actually kicked off in the middle lane, and so far things are slowing down a little bit. This is great for Huma, because what we haven't really talked about is the actual aim of Huma's composition. And They spike pretty well in the mid to late game. Fizz is going to be this massive split push threat, and you have this great poke siege, or poke sort of, it's not so much a siege anymore because the nerfs to Azir.
Yes, of course.
But the poke disengage comp that you have from
The threat under tower is still there from the Azir. Whether or not he has the damage to back it up, maybe not so much of a solo threat. You can kind of leave him alone in the mid lane and not be scared about him taking those towers. But I'm really curious to see how these team fights are going to play out now that that Azir wall is so much shorter. And really what Nerv are going to opt to do here.
Well, the interesting thing is, Huma have a team composition that is very much about keeping their distance, getting a bit of poke down, and you have Godbro on the Varus, so he can actually match this poke and arguably be a little bit stronger in terms of setting up that poke to Memento.
This has been the story of Memento's journeys through the jungle.
He's a blind lizard lady who...
He's a blind lizard lady.
Keeps getting caught out of position in his own jungle because they're standing still, so they can't see it.
It is true, and I kind of liking the way that Wendelbow and Impaler are playing together, consistently looking for those pick setups. And you got to think, I mean, if Memento ever doesn't have that tunnel cooldown, he's instantly going to have to burn a flash because they are consistently catching him out. Finding those little pick opportunities, but Cadril gonna get zoned out of the mid lane here. Wicked, maybe not the most mobile character, but is gonna move his way in there to apply some pressure. Impaler and Krislin finally gonna burn this one down. 13 minutes, the first dragon's gonna fall. Second one, Infernal coming out, so we can expect a lot more priority in that dragon pit when we hit the 19-minute mark.
Definitely. Very valuable dragon to be picking up. That 8% additional AD and AP is always a valuable skill to have, especially, or a valuable perk to have, especially after you've picked up a couple of extra abilities. So, do like that priority. Coming out for, well, I like the fact that Huma decided to pick that one up when they could. It was a free dragon. We're going to take that extra. Interestingly, if you're going back to lane, you get there a second sooner with the first dragon. So maybe you get a 1 CS advantage. That 1 CS that you almost miss, you won't if you have the cloud.
Hold on, we're going to watch, because there's an Azir in the mid lane.
Racing the god, bro.
Racing there. He got there 1 second sooner, and is now pushing the lane, so...
Value. That's what that is right there.
I mean, who's to say that the Cloud Drake is not the most valuable of the Drake?
Many people. There are many people that would say that.
And we obviously pretty harsh on it here early on. So let's divert our attention elsewhere. Lucian still opting for that Ghostblade build, as you predicted, still incredibly strong and oppressive. And then continuing to opt to match up against the Ezreal, though. Maybe looking to get a little more aggressive here now that he has that first item.
So, we've talked briefly about Huma's composition, and the thing about Nerv's composition is it's kind of weird, because when you have a Varus in the comp, it doesn't naturally make it that good at team fighting. He's decent at sustained DPS, but he's more about setting up the poke. He's about playing around objectives like the dragon or a turret and just constantly throwing out those piercing arrows. So he wants to be keeping a distance, whereas Lucian is very much about skirmishing, very much about dancing around these team fights. And then you've also got Wicked, who's trying to sit on the front line. So you could arguably have Memento and Wicked be your frontline engage, and then you have the backline of Varus just constantly throwing out poke, trying to clean up the fight, and then you have the Janna to provide peel for the Lucian that's going to be dashing around. But setting all that up is very difficult when you're going against Fizz, who's just going to easily walk onto your backline. You've got Azir and Ezreal that you also have to play around when you've got no hard engage.
Kindred with that ultimate, and I feel like the setup is just, it feels much more straightforward on the side of Huma, and much easier to execute. A lot of pressure on here in these team fights for Nerv, but Nardius is getting aggressive here. I don't know if this is the right choice. Flash backwards, still gets hit. Janna ult is channeled. No one here to follow up on that dive quite yet, but Lucian forced back. Memento here to protect the tower if necessary, but Huma definitely have the advantage now.
Certainly do. It is a 3 versus 3 up in the top lane. The teleports are available for both top laners, but neither deciding to actually pull the trigger right now. And Memento still just holding his own, doing what he can to try and keep his AD carry alive. But I think that right now, with the pressure that Huma is able to build up, and with a nice actually setup from Impaler to catch Nardius off guard, they should be able to take this turret up in the top lane.
Be working out well for them so far. Have another wave, no longer the culling available to clear out. And you can see on your screen, there's the Twitter vote. So another kill could go down. TP on the back side. They're moving forward. Memento finds the knock-up. TP coming in on the opposite side as well. Moving up, the Fizz has arrived. Lamb's Respite's going to drop. Wicked's getting burned through, but he has so much sustain. Wendelbow gets picked up. Godbro over the wall. One more auto. The arrow going to grab it. That's the double kill for Nerv. Huma extend horribly.
No response from Cadril. He just decides to stick in the mid lane. Wants to try and take this turret down, but you've got the Nerv to the W. Your siege threat is not as strong as it used to be. And Godbro rotating up to actually cut off the escape of Huma, enabled Nerv to pick themselves up 2 kills. And it was simply a matter of overcommitment from Huma. They feel like they have the numbers advantage. They've just forced back the AD carry, but you're trying to focus down a tank who's more than happy to soak up all this damage. You buy enough time for Cable to reposition on the flank. You then have the rest of Nerv just collapsing down onto your front line of Wendelbo. And this early on into the game, a Braum is not tanky enough to soak up 4 members. So just a little bit of an overcommitment from Huma, trying to force a play that really they weren't in a great position to fully commit to.
Yeah, really maybe just should have settled for the extra tower damage there, using that wave to push in. Instead, opting to go for a deeper play. Doesn't work out for them in the end. JWoww just going to dance his way on out of that one. Playful Trickster, still very effective tool at mitigating that damage here. Wendelbo, I feel like that maybe poor target priority in that fight overall. You can see them trying to burn Wicked down, but even at this stage of the game, he just has so much sustain. And they really just do not have the damage to burn through that health bar, especially with JWoww. I mean, using Ignite aggressively, not really affecting Wicked overall too much.
Well, Memento soaking up a lot of the main damage. Then with the flank TP coming in from Wicked, you feel, oh, we need to shift up priority onto this Swain, otherwise he's just going to ruin through our team. And that sort of indecision right there, followed up by the poor positioning from Huma to actually fully commit to that fight, resulted in Nerv just being able to easily take control. So Huma just need to be a little bit more restrained with trying to set up these plays. And when you have a team full of veterans, you would expect to be a little bit more coordinated. I mean, Wendelbo has a lot of experience. I mean, this entire lineup has a lot of experience playing in the Challenger Series, but perhaps some of the problems that they had in the past are still plaguing them right now.
Could be an issue. Of course, not out of the game just yet. You can see not even a 1K gold lead at this stage, and Huma, the Dragon, backing them up as well. We talked about it earlier. Infernal Drake is on the way. Memento burning through that Scuttle Crab to make sure they can contest this one. However, don't know if they're in the best position to do so right now. The Swain looking very powerful. Fizz will hopefully have Ignite for the next fight, but still has a decent amount of time left on that cooldown. Really needing that one, as there's no Morellonomicon coming in from the Azir quite yet. No way to stop that healing at the moment.
So, when it comes to actually playing around this Infernal Dragon, Nerv are in a good spot with the Azir. He's now completed the Mana Mune. He's working towards what looks like a Ghost Blade, so he's going to go for a little bit of penetration. Maybe he'll go for the Black Cleaver. I don't know if that's the best build choice, but Nerv have the position advantage. They have the vision control, and with the Varus being able to constantly put poke down, Huma are a little bit afraid to try and just walk into this Nerv lineup. They do have positioning on the mid lane turret, but with the poke threat of God, bro, I don't know if they can commit to it.
Yeah, the wave just instantly cleared out. Varus and Swain pretty comfortable just deleting those creeps in an instant. So Huma going for an aggressive move to try to trade mid lane for Dragon, but it does not work out, and Nerv now picking up their first Dragon. Pretty big difference in Infernal and Cloud, though. Starting to build this up. Ezreal ult across the back line. Nerv are looking for more here. They have 5 members in the mid lane. Huma in a decent spot to contest, however. That's a great initiation. Is there going to be any follow-up? Wendelbo taking a lot of damage from the culling. A lot of poke coming out on either side. Push any deeper than they already have. JWoww maybe looking for the flank here.
So that was actually a really good play from Nerv. They weren't interested in actually setting up a dive. It's very risky against an Azir, Braum, Kindred. But what you are doing is you're getting a lot of damage down that Huma cannot sustain back up. You're forcing them low. So the moment Nerv get their minions up to the turret, the next time, there's very little that Huma are going to be able to do to stop it.
Yeah, Huma doing their best, though. Steadily burning through the caster creeps. Poke continuing to come out. 20 minutes. Must be time to siege. Nerv taking this one nice and slow. Memento clearing out the vision. And Fizz just pushing in the top lane, knowing that he's not going to have too much impact to try to clear on this mid lane. Taylor moving up to back him up. Looks like they know that this tower is going to drop, and they've decided to set their sights elsewhere, looking to make it the 1-for-1 trade. But Swain is pushing in the bottom lane as well. This could be very bad for Huma. Oh, aggressive play. Cleanse comes out as well. Azir still going to get knocked up. He did not respect the potential chain. Moving forward, Wicked grabs the tower as well. Constant pressure being laid down. Huma trade one back, but Nerv now with the gold advantage as well as the Infernal Drake.
Nerv could look to rotate around to the bottom lane and actually pick themselves up a tier 2, but because of the damage that Nardius has sustained, the Nerv are a little bit hesitant to try and force that play. So I think it's smart from them to disengage here, just be happy with the mid lane turret that they've picked themselves up. And now what they can do is they can just rotate round to pick up this extra farm in the side lanes. Crescent a little bit slow on the rotation, but Wicked, reading what was happening in the top, is likely going to be able to get back to the top lane, pick up a bit of extra farm. You can see a bit of a CS discrepancy starting to develop between Fizz and Swain, and now that the items are starting to come through for JWoww, this could be a bit of a problem for Nerv, because if you just have a look at their composition, there really aren't that many options for dealing with this Fizz split push. You can't exactly send the Varus to sit in the side lane. You can't exactly... I mean, the Swain can be quite a difficult thing to deal with, and the fact that he's gone for a Spirit's Visage suggests that he is preparing himself for dealing with the Fizz, but still, when you're stacking up that health, that's just going to do even more favors to the Fizz. Yeah,
definitely not the place where you want to be. Really can't afford to get to the point where they let themselves get split push out. Still very reliant on the Varus siege, it feels like. See, finishing up the Black Cleaver Youmu's, or the Lucian, as well as the Black Cleaver Manamune. No one on the opposite side has any way to shut down the Swain's healing quite yet, however. Maybe the Black Cleaver coming in from the Kindred as well, as that is a Phage coming out? I guess Triforce, potentially?
I expected to go for the Black Cleaver. You have to remember that the Dance of Arrows will help you apply the Black Cleaver passive, so you can get a bit of armor shred onto multiple targets. Always a beneficial thing to have, especially when you stack it up with the Runin's Hurricane. Going to be doing a lot of damage to a lot of people. But now, Nardius has completed his core on Lucian. Along with Godbro, all he needs is the Muramana, and then he is pretty much good to go. And then Nerv are going to be looking to set up more sieges like they have been, trying to set up more around these objectives. This Braum is making Varus' life a little bit difficult, but because of the very low cooldown on that piercing arrow, Wendelbo won't be able to block out all of them, so he's going to have to rely on his teammates to block a couple. But moving forward, Nerv should feel pretty happy right now. The gold difference isn't that big, but in terms of the pressure that this Varus can put down and the fact that JWoww going for more of this tank build isn't actually going to be as big of a threat to Godbro as a full AP Fizz necessarily would be.
I think that's something definitely to be aware of. The thing we saw from mid lane Fizz, especially in the hands of Perks, is that, yeah, it can be absolutely terrifying. Tank Fizz, still a threat to those squishier targets, but a lot longer timeline for survivability. Yeah. Will eventually kill you, but you have some decent opportunities to respond, and have to see exactly where his build will go next. Swain, of course, completing up the Zhonya's. Now, really the big thing for me as we look, it feels like every member of Huma, as you mentioned, suffering from the pressure being put down, because Ezreal relegated to wave, clear duty, Fizz just doing his best to push in this bottom lane, and now the core of Nerv is able to just push in mid lane freely with those wards on the flank as well.
It is getting pretty difficult, though, because what Caedrel's doing on this Azir is... The thing you have to be very mindful of on Azir is if he's allowed to walk up to the lane and start hitting the minions before they hit the tower, his wave clear can be very effective. You need to stop the Azir from actually moving up in the lane and allowing him to get that damage down onto the wave. You have to be more oppressive. You have to be to get as much damage down as possible to make him hesitant, make him wary to actually extend in the lane. And once the minion wave hits the turret, that's your opportunity to then really set up a successful siege. But because Nerv have been playing a little bit hesitant themselves, very wary of the possibility of a flank from JWoww, they haven't really been able to properly set up a siege onto these tier 2 turrets. So given that, I expect the Dragon to be the next big point of contention, or it could be right now.
Oh, Wendelbo flash in, tries to get aggressive. TP coming in on the backside, but this could be a poor engage coming out from Huma. TP gets canceled. Wendelbo with a low life bar does get both summoners from Godbro in the end, but it costs a TP and a flash on the side of Huma.
So it looks like the Huma are trying to force a fight. They realize that they have the numbers advantage, they recognize the Memento isn't anywhere nearby, and they want to try and catch out Godbro in the mid lane. He's forced to use both of his summoners, but Wendelbo, the engagement that you have with a Braum isn't exactly reliable. You have to go for the flash in, you then have to throw your ultimate down, and it actually gives you plenty of time to respond. And Godbro, we know this guy is quick on the reflexes, he can read the play, and so he's just quickly able to get out of that one.
And one of the big difficulties of Braum, of course, is the animation on that ultimate is just so slow that even the flash in, sometimes most of the time you're still going to have decent opportunity to dodge out there. Not getting the best angle either to predict those flashes. So a good play overall, though, because Godbro without these summoners, I mean, feels incredibly vulnerable to me, especially with a Fizz on the opposite side.
Certainly does. Something that Godbro will have to be very mindful of, but he does have a Janna there to keep him alive as well. And Janna, one of the queens of Peel, really annoying to get onto a backline when they have a Janna there. I know that from my experiences as playing Assassin mid lane is the thing that I hate most is playing against a Janna who gives them that shield, knocks you in the air, slows you down, and then even after you get through all of that, she exhausts you for long enough to then have a rotation up again. So that Janna really good at keeping these low mobility mages and AD carries alive. And when it's tank Fizz, who's not reliant on burst and is more about sustained damage, a Janna is actually a very difficult matchup for him to deal with.
Yeah, exhaust, of course, kind of terrifying, but a little less so when you're not blocking out those huge damage burst combos that you might see from a Zed with the Death Mark or another comparable assassin, even the AP Fizz in some of those circumstances. But Nerv, they haven't gotten a tower in a while, and they're going to have to settle for a substitute one as they will burn through that Sun Disc.
So the problem we are having right now is that both teams are just shoving out the side waves slowly, and then they're regrouping in the mid and they're kind of waiting for something to happen. But what we identified from Nerv's composition earlier is they have no reliable way to actually start a fight. I mean, the best you can do is run at your opponents, which is, funnily enough, quite easy to read and react to. Whereas Huma, they have a couple more options, but they're very hesitant to fight Nerv right now because you have the Black Cleaver Ghostblade build on Illusion. You have Godbro who's chunking you out before you even have an opportunity to force a fight. So we're getting this very slow game because both teams want to fight, but they just can't find an opportunity, and there's nothing in their compositions that really allows it to happen.
And we got to give some praise over to Nerv, especially in terms of vision control. They absolutely own this Baron pit, and if they can maybe get a bait out here, or maybe just burn through the Baron, they've got a great opportunity to build a lead. But in the meantime, I mean, they're just playing footsies right now. We're not going to see any greater advantage. Both teams just looking for a mistake, hoping to go a little bit deeper. Nardius and the rest of Nerv now backing off towards that Baron pit, but Huma aren't going to take the bait quite yet. They do have some blue trinkets available as well.
So, there's a ward behind Huma right now. This could be a TP flank option for Wicked to try and set up. JWoww is slowly moving up to the mid lane. It looks like Nerv are looking for a fight.
Not the right circumstance, though, because they could be in trouble. TP's coming in from the Swain. JWoww on the front lines, but he'll be able to get out of this one in just a second. Never Move goes down. JWoww gets knocked up. Lamb's Respite going to save the day, though. They're moving forward. Wicked happy to have that healing, but he's got the reduce from the Ignite. Oh! Zanya's not going to be enough. The fight continues. Kadril's on the backside. Nardia's burning through the health bar while he can. Godbro's going to drop. The fight continues. Wicked simply will not die. Impaler drops as well. Nerv, they're trying to win this fight. Krislin gets locked up. Oh, the Ezreal going massive. The double kill coming in. Kadril looking for a little bit more. Krislin, is he going to get the shot? No. Wicked stepping the wrong way, but devastation for Nerv. Completely losing out in that fight as Huma start to push in the 3-for-3 exchange.
Well, Huma, they're looking now with the numbers advantage to try and continue their push onto the mid lane turret, but they're very wary of Memento coming in from the flank, so they're immediately going to disengage. Smart decision coming out from Huma, not trying to push too much, but overall, very even fight between the two teams. But you're seeing how difficult it is for either team to really set up a play. The ultimate comes out from Godbro because he realizes he is out of position. JWoww dives into the backline, exhaust immediately. JWoww is forced to back away, already used all of his high mobility skills, and if it wasn't for the Lamb's Respite, he would have been a goner, and this fight would have gone on Nerv's favor. But now, Wicked is sitting on the front line, and the great thing about a Swain is while he can be on the front line and soak up a lot of damage, if you focus him, he's still a mage. He's still someone that doesn't build pure tank, someone you can quickly shut down, and with him gone, the rest of Huma can just use their long-range ability to get the poke down, keep Nerv at a distance, and Nerv can't continue to fight because they have no real way to re-engage their fight. So the fact that there's no backline threat onto Kadril and Krislin means that in these long, drawn-out fights, it is Huma that are regularly coming out ahead.
I mean, you say regularly, but even that fight just felt so close to me. Wicked making it out within an inch of his life, and advantage overall. Once again, a Sun Disc potentially set to fall here as the poke wars continue. We have to say, though, starting that fight was a little bit awkward as Huma were able to just burn down that mid lane tower. They do now, in the end, have the 1K gold advantage. We're 31 minutes in, so that's not super important for either side. 1K not going to be the make or break point at this stage of the game. But the flash in, Wendelbo's getting aggressive. Not a lot of options. Godbro finally has flash up. Ezreal making his way to the mid lane, or Rek'Sai rather, as they push forward. Wendelbo taking a lot of damage. Doesn't look like they're going to push this one any further. Just getting the poke down onto the support. No aggressive moves here. Nerv really taking this one slow and steady.
They're very wary of the potential teleport coming out from JWoww. They're going to take down the Sun Disc in the mid lane, but Godbro landing a great ult onto Wendelbo to actually get a lot of damage down onto him. they might have committed for the kill if it wasn't for Impaler's Lamb Respite. And if you dive that far into a Lamb's Respite, you end up a creek without a paddle. So smart from Nerv to avoid the chase, and neither team is going to be able to pick up a kill or any real objective off the back of that. But because of the TP differential now, look at this. Wicked rotating around to his team. JWoww can keep the split push pressure up.
Oh no, Wicked, that's not a fight he wants. A quick collapse, but Nerv are there to back him up. JWoww TPing in, looking to shut down that healing, but Wicked is going to survive. Braum is set to drop, and the Baron attempt from Huma instantly, or from Nerv, instantly thwarted, but Huma give up a life to do that one in the end.
Viewers at home, if you're playing against a Swain, be very aware of something. If all of your team focus him, he'll die pretty quickly, because he's not a natural tank. However, if 2 or 3 members try to kill him, you will not be able to kill him fast enough. And this is the problem that Huma just demonstrated. They committed their support and their jungler into trying to kill a Swain. He has far too much sustain. He's even picked up the Spirit's Visage, which even facilitates his healing even more. So you end up giving away a life. But with that Nerv, they felt like they could go for the Dragon. Huma tried to respond with the Baron, but an immediate ward from Nerv is just going to force that disengage from Huma.
The dance continues. This time Nerv maybe looking to get more aggressive as they push into this jungle for vision. They made a Baron attempt themselves, but now they're going to set their sights on the mid lane. A large overextend moment coming in from Huma. The tower drops to the mid lane. The Mountain Drake over to Nerv. That is a Cloud, an Infernal, and a Mountain Drake. So really getting everything they wanted out of that one. Earth, Wind, and Fire, if you will.
Sounds like something bad after a curry. I don't know. The joke's there somewhere. But Nerv...
Or the... Never mind. God damn you.
Nerv right now... sorry, notice that the map is opening up a lot more now, because Huma were the ones to try and force a lot of these engagements, trying to collapse down onto Nerv as they try to set up a lot of map rotational plays, and Huma sometimes coming out ahead, sometimes coming out behind, but Nerv sitting on the kill lead, and the gold being very even with the map a lot more open, there's no clear indicator as to who's going to take this game.
Yeah, and this looks a little bit of rinse and repeat here. Wicked. Ooh. Getting aggressive. Crystalline going forward. They're slowing down the Swain. The Fizz all going in. Shark not going to be enough quite yet. Impaler caught out though. Lamb's Respite's going to have to drop. He gets it in time. Memento not going to grab the kill, but Wicked's healing up. Maybe an early Zhonya's coming in. Neither side losing any members, and it's just a trade of blows back and forth between these two teams. They're so even at this point in the game.
What's very smart from Huma is they're the ones constantly trying to set up picks and plays, which is actually denying Godbro the opportunity to position in a way that he can get a lot of poke down onto Huma and actually prevent them from forcing these plays, which is very smart from Huma. They're playing around this Varus very nicely. They're not allowing him to be this very irritating threat on the backline that they can't get onto. And forcing the flash out from Wicked is great for Huma, because now that Swain is not going to be able to just flash in, dive onto the backline, and be some obnoxious bug that you can't get rid of.
And we have to keep in mind, too, with the increased Zhonya's cooldown, if there is a Baron attempt or any aggressive moves to start a fight, that's a huge advantage, because that Zhonya's has saved Wicked's life multiple times across these fights.
Really good interaction with Swain and Zhonya's as well, is that you can continue to heal up while you're in stasis.
The birds just keep going.
Yep, they do indeed. And interestingly enough, Swain and Memento have actually been involved in every single one of Nerv's kills. So you can see how much of an impact Wicked is having as this off-tank frontline that Huma are struggling to actually play around.
Yeah, and you, as you said, struggling to play around it, are starting to build tools to deal with it. You can see the Executioner's calling coming in from the Ezreal, the Ignite from the Fizz, looking to shut down those healing, or that healing in these extended fights. But moving forward, I mean, is the advantage in favor of Huma. They have the Azir, they have the Ezreal pushing forward to offer a lot of poke, and Varus, you know, he's kind of at the strongest point that he can be. It doesn't feel like, relative to the opposition, that he gets much stronger than this.
While that is true in terms of the AD carries, you can never underestimate the damage of a late game Varus, who you try to set up a siege onto the turret, Varus just sits off on the flank and constantly throws out those piercing arrows. They hurt if a lot of them hit you. So it's something that you have to be very mindful of.
Oh god, bro. Fizz hurts too, though. The Ignite comes down. Ooh. Just going to back off on that one. Both summoners burned.
Wow.
It's actually a very good pickup. 1 for 2 in the summoner spell department, but we've seen a lot of that this game and haven't seen it turn into anything greater. Wicked now relegated to clearing out the top side, and the game continuing to just be slow and steady. Wendell, though, blocking out that Culling, going to make things a bit easier to apply pressure on the tower. However, Huma's still going to back off in the end.
That's a lot of good damage from Huma down onto that turret. Forcing Godbro back has really opened the doors for Huma to really set up the siege properly, because now they're not afraid of this poke. They can actually set up the poke for themselves and just use Wendelbo as a front line to be like, any extra poke that you do have, I'm just going to clear out with my shield. So Huma doing a really good job of being mindful of this virus and just, again, playing around it very nicely. It was a pick that Nerv, I think, were happy to get. Really good pick into the Azir, really good pick into the composition of Huma, but Huma are just reacting very nicely to it.
Yeah, overall, I think very good responses coming in on both sides to kind of adapt, but I'm really wondering what Nerv are going to do at this stage, where they're going to find their opening, because as you said, really lacking a lot of those engaged backline kind of threats, and as the Azir and the Ezreal just continue to get stronger, it's going to get more and more necessary. Memento, though, you can see now pushing in the mid lane, consistently looking to get that vision down, making great use of the ultimate to back and refill that Tracker's Knife. However, it looks like once again we're looking at a Baron dance here as Huma not content to control the vision just around Baron, now pushing into the jungle as well on the side of Nerv.
Something we do need to be very mindful of is the late game power of this Ezreal and the Azir. In team fights, they can be disastrous. And the fact that JWoww actually going for the Zhonya's next does mean that he wants a bit of extra damage. Really surprising that he's not gone for any kind of magic resistance whatsoever. Suggests that he doesn't want to play against that Swain whatsoever. He's not interested in going in the 1v1. All he cares about is these mid to late game team fights where he wants to be able to deal with the Varus and the Lucian. They are the main target threats, so by picking up a lot of extra armor, he can deal with that lot of poke and a lot of damage that Nardius and Godbro have.
Maybe looking to get aggressive here, Krislin. Nice dodge out there on the never move. Moving forward. Mento. Actually, poke going to come out here. Varus arrow is going to find home. Krislin not too happy with that one, but no further engage. We mentioned this. One of the big failings of this Nerv composition. Can't really get in there even if they do land that poke. He's not at this point. Slow and steady wins the race appears to be the name of this game, and Paler just clearing out what vision he can, maybe hoping that they can set up a Baron attempt or another bait here. And Elder Dragon well on the way, now live in fact. This could be, they have two major points to contest on the map.
Yep.
Neither side too interested in Elder Dragon quite yet. Obviously insanely hard to take.
This just reminds me of the ESG versus 4G matchup that we had during the qualifiers, where neither team had a way to hard engage, and both teams were very hesitant to actually force it. And so you end up with this long, drawn-out game with both teams just trying to find an opportunity, waiting for someone to just ever so slightly overstep so that you can land that crowd control. But until that point happens, you just have a lot of back and forth, a lot of dancing. Huma very likely to just bait the Baron to try and draw Nerv in.
Oh, TP coming in though. They're looking to back this one up. Moving forward, Wendelbo blocking what he can, but that's a low health bar on the Braum. JWoww over the wall, Home Guards comes in, jumps onto Godbro. Shark gonna miss, not gonna find purchase there. Nardius dishing out the damage. The fight continuing to move forward, but the front line is alive and well on the side of Nerv. JWoww jumps in, not gonna find a target. We will fail with a great disengaged Wicked, healing up Nardius over the wall. What are you doing, man? That's not what you want. Krislin happy to pick up that kill, handed to him on a silver platter. Nerv now moving in, or moving out rather. That is not a fight that they wanted. Outplayed by Huma in that exchange.
Oh, Krislin, he wants a little bit more though.
Godbro could block from Wendelbo.
Oh, this is very tense right now.
The fight just continues. Low health bars, but they don't care. Never move coming out. Wendelbo knocked up. Maybe looking to get knocked down here. Prey Seeker comes out. Torment goes down. Memento. Wicked now unstoppable. 5-0-3. JWoww moving forward. Guardian Angel comes out and Paler throws down the Lamb's Rest, but they want the healing. Kadril wants the damage. Can they win the fight? They push him out. Double kill for the Fizz. One pick up. They're turning it around. Huma with 4 kills. The ace. And now potentially the Baron.
Huma finally find themselves the late game team fight that they have been looking for. They set up the bait around the Baron. JWoww is the first to set up the initiation. Great sidestep from Godbro to actually avoid that collapse coming out from Huma, and then they try to go for the re-engage, but Nardius, he gets too big for his boots. Going in for the flash engage immediately into the exhaust means that so much of the damage of Nerv just disappears. At this point in time, Nerv could just decide to disengage. They could just back away from the fight, but instead they decide to stick around. They're feeling confident enough to continue the fight, but it's just the target focus down onto Wicked, prevents Nerv from being able to clean up this fight. So they get that initial kill onto Wendelbo. Memento, but just have a look at the positioning of Kadril and Kristen on the backline. The two big damage dealers still free to get so much damage off and just clean up this fight.
This is such amazing coordination coming in from the side of Huma. The full power of Lamb's Respite on display there. You can see the Baron finally going down in their favor. More than happy to grab this one. The gold lead 2K, that's not important, but the Baron buff backing them up is absolutely everything. However, Nerv now potentially looking to take the Elder Dragon in exchange. This is a very bold move, a very aggressive and risky decision. Huma moving in now. Nerv be feeling like this is their last chance.
It's very risky right now for Nerv. If they commit too hard for that Elder Dragon, they're just going to put themselves in an even worse situation. There is a big minion wave up in the top half of the map, pushing towards Huma's base, but with the Baron buff minions from Huma, they don't really care. They just want to get the siege set up, and they want to try and close things out as quickly as possible. They do have to be very mindful of those sideways, though. JWoww immediately responding. He doesn't have his teleport available, but look at the damage.
Oh my gosh, God, bro, that is devastating. I thought the Ezreal ult was going to come out too. Not quite yet. A lot of damage on this team. Even Kindred at this point just hitting like a truck as those hunts keep getting completed. They're looking to break the inhibitor line. There's no defense here coming in from the side of Nerv. Not any wave clear option, and with the first inhibitor set to fall, this is great for Huma. Never move, though. Still going to hit two members. Kadril not going to get locked up. Wendelbo tanking that one for the team. Memento moving forward, but he's going to get burned down. All hits over the wall. Going to land on Lucian. Wicked. Great Zhonya's to dodge out there, but Impaler getting pushed out. Not quite out of range of the Lamb's Respite. Wicked alive and well. Kadril playing Sacrificial Lamb, but he is going to be the one to win his team this game. Ezreal picks up the double, looking to make it a triple. Moving forward, triple kill for the Ezreal. Pinoy, now known as Chrislin, coming back with a vengeance as Huma are set to end this game. A back and forth performance for sure, but at the end of the day, Huma reigns supreme in those late game team fights.
They certainly do. Huma, very slow game to kick things off with the Challenger Series. This is the problem that you have when you have no engage. If only there was some way to put engages down in the bottom lane. But anyway, still, well executed from Huma overall. They managed to get the late game team fights that they wanted. And really what you saw was a difficulty to engage from Nerv. They have the Swain, they had the Rek'Sai. It was really difficult for them to just go, let's fight now. We're in a really good power pick. Let's try and force this. And it comes back to champion select, where we discussed where is this Swain gonna go. And personally, I think it's better when you put it in the mid lane, because in a lot of matchups, he can be very difficult to deal with. In a lot of situations, he can offer a little bit more, but he's that guy that's really good in following up. He's that guy that can do a lot of sustained damage in teamfights that become quite chaotic, but you need someone else to actually kick off the fight for you. And if you're relying on the Swain to set up these TP fights, he just gets focused down, and you saw so many times in that game where they could just pop Wicked like he was nothing.
And really, too, the flexibility of the comp on the opposite side from Huma was that late game that is here was a great engage option, a great threat, synergizing incredibly well with the Kindred in those late game team fights to really own that Lamb's Respite zone, to really make only their side unkillable. Some of those very aggressive Shurima Shuffle style plays paying off for them in the end, and it seems like Nerv had great tools this game, but they didn't, and they all made sense individually, great in terms of lane matchup, giving individual comfort as well, but in terms of what the team did together, it did not feel aligned whatsoever. Didn't really make sense as a whole. On the opposite side, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of great engage options, but what there was, it was a lot of good scaling options as well as some good backline threat, and that paid off in the end.
Well, there's still a second game. Fortunately, this is best of 2 in the Challenger Series, because in Europe we love ties.
Do.
And in particular, I think that what Nerv need to do is they just need to reevaluate how do we actually force fights. If team fighting is the way we want to go, then you need to change up your options. And the slightly upsetting thing is at the end, there's a good chance that Nerv could have won that fight, but just one big overstep from Nardius, diving onto the backline into an exhaust, it was just a little bit too hungry for blood.
Absolutely, and that's something you have to consider coming into game 2. We'll have to see how they adapt, of course, because Huma is now 1 up over Nerv, and with that, we're going to take a quick break as we get ready for game 2 in this set. Narnia is not going to be enough. The fight continues. Caedrel's on the backside. Narnia's burning through the health bar while he can. Godbro's going to drop. The fight continues. Wicked simply will not die. Impaler drops as well. Nerv, they're trying to win this fight. Krislin gets locked up. Oh, the Ezreal going massive. The Godbro. Fizz hurts too, though. The Ignite comes down. Ooh. Can they win the fight? They push him out. Double kill for the Fizz. One pick up. They're turning it around. Huma with 4 kills. The ace.